Hello YouTube, welcome to my home and welcome to my channel, A Ginger Can. In this episode, A Ginger Can make traditional Korean seaweed soup, miyeok. Miyeok is seaweed in Korean and guk is soup. Traditionally this is made with beef. We're going to mix it up a little bit with some seafood, and you only need a couple of basic things which you should be able to find in any Korean market, and if you don't have that, then an Oriental market should have most of these. First, you'll need some seaweed, hence the name. You'll need some fish sauce, which I'm really hoping they don't make it the same way they make applesauce because that sounds really messy. You'll need soy sauce. This soy sauce is Korean and is specifically for making soups. If you can't find this, that's fine. Any soy sauce will work. We're going to start making the soup base with a stock using boiled dried anchovies. Get the largest that you can find. This is a medium size. They come larger, but we were completely out and this is what I could find. And some dried kelp. We'll also use some garlic, and as I said, traditionally this is used with beef. I use sirloin, cut it thinly, cook it first, take it out, and then start boiling everything. But we're going to use mixed seafood for this, and I'm going to chop it up pretty finely for the boys, try to disguise it from them. And you'll need some sesame oil. So, first let's cut up the seaweed. It needs to soak in a bowl for at least 2 to 3 hours. I do this 6 hours in advance. It's 10 o'clock now. I start cooking at around 4 o'clock. And that gives me plenty of time to let it soak, and then I can come back and inspect it in a couple of hours and see if I need to add more and adjust from there. You really can't take it out and re-dry it. And once it's hydrated, it's hydrated. You have to cook it. And another thing you need to know is a little bit goes a long way. So it comes in these long bags typically. And we'll pull it out. And for my family of 4, I usually about 2 inches. And again, like I said, in a couple of hours I'll come back and look and I'll swish it around and see if that's going to be enough. If not, I can always add more, and I still have plenty of time for it to soak. It does not have to soak overnight. It's not going to hurt it, but that's not necessary. So the other thing you need to be conscious of when you're cutting this is some of the seaweed is going to be larger than others. So as I'm grabbing this, I can already tell that there's a lot of dense leaves in there. So that's going to add volume to your soup. It's not going to change the taste, it's going to change the texture a little bit. But some are thicker, some are thinner. So that's going to, again, change your serving size. So since it's pretty dense, I'm going to cut back a little bit, probably to about 1.5 inches. And as you're cutting this, pieces are going to go flying. You'll find seaweed are all around your kitchen for days. So let's cut into this. Yeah, there, I see it flying. There. Let me just tuck that back in, and we'll pick up any scraps. So, we've got scraps all over the counter, which isn't a huge deal. I got scraps on the floor. I'll vacuum those up later. So, like I said, I'll fill this bowl with water. We'll let it soak for a couple of hours. And we will go from there. I'll see you in a couple of hours. Okay, welcome back. It's been about 6 hours here. It's 4 o'clock. And all the seaweed is plumped up. And you're looking at this, and I know you're looking at me and going, Brian, really? That's me, by the way. Yes, really. This is really delicious. It's a much mild flavor like spinach. Comes out in these huge sheets. We'll cut them up here in a second. It's really good for you. It's got a lot of antioxidants in it. It's a healthy dish. And then you've got the garlic to spice it up a little bit. You compound the seaweed with the seafood flavor. You get a lot of good flavor there. A lot of depth with the fish sauce. Soy sauce adds a lot of salt. And then you get the sesame oil on top, and it really comes together. And I'll tell you what, between you and me, this is 1,000 times better than kale. I've tried kale. It's disgusting. I'm sorry if you like it, but I cannot stomach it. I'll rather eat dandelions, and I have. I'd rather eat dandelion salads than kale. So, seaweed is very good for you, and it tastes pretty darn good too. So, as you see, it's got some pretty big chunks. What you could do is you could wring it out, put it on your chopping board, chop it up. I'm not going to do that. There's a far easier method. So we'll take our shears and we'll go 3 across. What I like to do is 3 across, turn it 90, 3 across again, turn it 45, 3 across, and then another 90, and 3 across. And that'll still give us some pretty good sized chunks. And then what I'll end up doing for the boys is when I dish theirs out, I'll chop it up even more before I add the rice. And that's one thing you want to add at the end is rice, because it adds a lot of texture to it. So if you don't have rice prepared, start preparing rice. We have a rice cooker. There's always rice ready. There's never a minute that we don't have rice prepared. So with that, we put this aside and we're going to build our stock now. Well, we've got our Dutch oven, which is great. I love these things. And I have this little strainer. And in the strainer, we have our dried kelp, which comes out in pretty big sheets. I'll take the shears, cut them up, and then I'll throw them in a bag and put them in the freezer so they last longer. And in here, I probably have 3 3-inch squares. And then underneath that, I've got the anchovies. Now, if you're using the bigger anchovies, use 5 or 6. I'm using the medium size, so I took 2 fingerfuls and just threw them in here. And we'll close that up, and we'll put it in our Dutch oven. And what I'll do is I'll fill my Dutch oven up to about this line, which is approximately 5 to 6 cups of water. And then I'll bring that up to a boil. And then once that's boiling, we'll get that going. I'll be right back. Okay, got this filled with water, I got it boiling. Now we're going to cut up the garlic. Personally, I like a lot of garlic. So I will grab 5, 6, let's do 7 decently sized cloves. They aren't the biggest cloves in the world. You can chop them. Yeah, there's that option. Or you can use a garlic press. I like to use a garlic press because chopping them gets a lot of chunks, and with the boys is if they get a large chunk, like I don't chop it fine enough, which does occasionally happen, it'll turn them off from the soup. So we'll take some garlic, and you can do this while you're building your base. It just gives the garlic a chance to get into the water some and really give it that flavor. And you don't want to put the garlic inside the strainer with the kelp and the anchovies because you want the garlic to stay with the soup. Then I'll clean it up. Using the back side, this is the cutting side, using the back side so you don't dull your blade, scrape up some of that garlic and give it another press. And drop some. And scrape up. Make sure you use the back side of your knife. A lot of times I'll see people chopping and they'll scrape their knife across the cutting board. Flip it over. It saves the blade. You don't have to sharpen it as often. And it's much better for the knife. So with that, we've got the seaweed cut, ready to go. We will have to strain that. I'm not going to bore you with that because basically you're just scooping out handfuls, squeeze, no, I'll show you. You scoop out a handful, squeeze the heck out of it, have water squirt everywhere, and set it aside. Now you can see, well, that one's alright. I thought it was a lot longer. If you do get a long strands, then now's a good time to chop it up. But I'm going to do this for a little bit. I'm going to wait for this to boil. And we'll be right back. Okay, I got all the seaweed out. You can see from the little bit that I cut off, this is the seaweed I have. And a trick that I've learned to get the last little bit out, because you're going to be fighting it, you're going to be trying to scoop it out and it's going to fight you. Get a strainer, dump it over the sink, get that last little bit out. I'm not going to worry about this much. So with this out, this boiling, I'm going to move the camera over so you can see me add the liquids and the seafood. I'm going to chop up some of the seafood and throw it in. You take seafood out, let it thaw a little bit, chop it up, throw it in. That's near the end. The sesame seed oil is definitely at the end after you take it off the heat. But these 2 sauces go in afterwards, after this comes to a boil, to taste. And yeah, I'll see you when I flip the camera around. Okay, we're back. This is up to a boil. We're going to give it a couple of minutes. Once it's up to a boil, we've got our seaweed prepped, we've got our soy sauce, our fish sauce, and our sesame seed oil here on the side. Give this about 15 minutes to boil. You'll see chunks of garlic coming up on top. And it's okay to touch, it's not that hot. If I can touch it, it's not that hot. We'll swish some of that garlic. Now it's hot because I got hot water on it. We'll swish some of that garlic off. We'll get a good boil on this for about 15 minutes. And then I'll bring it back and we'll start adding stuff. Okay. It's been boiling for about 10 minutes. We're going to take this out. You can grab this little thing. You're going to be tempted to take this out and put your hand underneath this. Don't do that. Because that's boiling water. Use the lid. Let's be smart about this. And I'm telling you this because I've actually done that and it hurt. So, boiling, we got the seaweed, we're going to dump the seaweed in, we got some good garlic flavor going on. The water's a little bit green from the kelp. Throw this in. Get as much as you can, but I'll tell you right now, seaweed is a stubborn I guess it's a vegetable, to deal with, because it sticks to everything. Also, do not be tempted to stick your hand in there and get the rest of the seaweed off. That also hurts. So we're going to bring this up to a boil, stir it in a little bit. And then we're going to start adding our sauces. And while this comes up to a boil, I'm going to chop some seafood, and then we'll be right back to add everything together. Okay, that didn't take too long, about 4 minutes, 3 minutes to get this back up to a boil. I chopped up, roughly a cup and a half, 2 cups of seafood. Now, I did mention that this is traditionally made with beef. So what you want to do if you're going to use beef is cook the beef in the pot first before you start making the base. That way you get the coating of the beef on the bottom. Take the beef out, then start the base, and then at the end, since the beef is already cooked, throw it back in with the sesame oil. But we're not doing that. We're going to use some seafood. Chopped it up. And since it is mostly frozen still, it's going to drop the temperature of the boiling water. But not that much apparently. So now it's going to come together quickly because you don't want to overcook the seafood. So we're going to add the fish sauce. We're going to add about a tablespoon. You don't need a lot of fish sauce. And I'll have all the ingredients down at the bottom in their approximate amounts. Now again, as I said before, soy sauce is to taste, so you are going to have to taste this. And you are going to see me use the same spoon because I'm feeding my family. I'm not a 5-star chef. I'm barely a 2-star father. So get this back up to a boil. I'm going to grab a spoon real fast. Give this a good stir since we added the fish sauce. Okay, we're over high heat too, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but the heat hasn't been turned down at all. We'll turn it down here in a little bit. So we'll taste it first. Definitely about a tablespoon of fish sauce. So then we'll add, at first, about a tablespoon of soy sauce. Give this a good stir. Let it sit for a second. Actually, you know what? That's spot on. Just enough saltiness. So we'll let this boil for another 3 minutes roughly. Get all the flavors blended. We'll stir occasionally. You don't need to watch this because we all know a watched pot never boils. Give it about 3 minutes to cook down a little bit, and then we'll add the sesame seed oil, and we're ready to serve. Okay, I just took it off the stove. I did some prep work here. I have not added the sesame seed oil yet. It was boiling good for a good 3 minutes. High heat is perfect for this. Give it another stir, give it another taste. Still spot on. So we're going to use some sesame seed oil. You want about 2 teaspoons or 3 teaspoons, which ended up being a tablespoon. You gotta make sure you do this when it's off the stove. You don't want to cook this too much. I'll put that back there. Give it a good stir. That's that. It smells spot on. Kids are gonna love this. And there's not too much seafood, so they're not gonna immediately throw it away. You can see, you know, little white bits floating in there. Yeah, that's coming together good. So for preparation, I have about 2 cups for an adult of rice in the bowl, and I'll put that in the bowl first. And then you just spoon it in. And you can see there's nice big chunks of seaweed, good chunks of seafood, get some of that broth in there. And then, as I mentioned, for the boys, this is their soup bowl. I don't put the rice in first because I don't want to cut it up with the shears. I'll put a couple of spoons of soup in their bowls. I'll take my thumb in their soup. That hurt. Then I'll take my shears again. And just like before, I'll go 3 across, turn it 90 degrees, 3 across. And instead of doing the 45, I give it a good stir. And then do 3 across again, turn it 90 degrees, 3 across. And that is usually good for their meal. So I've got 2 spoonfuls of that. I'll put some rice in, probably about half a cup for a child. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, so they don't need a whole lot of filling. So that's how we make, or Ginger makes, seaweed soup. My name is Brian. Thank you for watching. If you like this, please do the usual things: like, subscribe, comment. So that's all I got. Thank you for watching A Ginger Can, and as proven, a ginger can make Korean seaweed soup. And if a ginger can make it, I believe you can too. Thank you.